What's up, guys? Hi. Uh, hi. So, I was going through some old stuff and I found this story that I wrote. Now, it's handwritten and it was in one of my old, school folders, and it has some notes on it, so I submitted it to a teacher and he reviewed it, I guess, and I was reading through it and I was just, it's really good. So basically, I'm just gonna read you the story, and that's it. And I got skeleton hands. So, all right, just get right into it. You know what I'm saying? So it's got my name at the top of it, and it's titled Nail Clipper. Now I read through it already, and part of this is, some of it is actually true. I mean, okay. I'm just gonna read it. All right. So it starts off, Nail Clipper. Hawk was ready to leave from Guatemala to the United States. He was planning to cross the border, but he had toenails that grew at an outrageous speed. They grew so fast that they would protrude through the tips of his shoes come nightfall. Every day at midday, he had a ritual of cutting his toenails with his favorite nail clipper. This nail clipper was given to him by his closest friend, Pat. Pat had traveled often, and one day, upon his return, he brought his friend this nail clipper. It wasn't just an average nail clipper, it had a picture of a chicken portrayed on it. And it also contained a rotating piece to grind down nails. It was truly the Swiss Army knife of nail clippers, and Hawk treasured it with all his heart. He brought it with him everywhere he went. Now he was about to leave his hometown, and one of the few possessions he would bring was his prized nail clipper. The chicken on the front of the clipper has almost been entirely faded away at this point. Hawk went to sleep and arose the next day, ready to start his journey. First, he took a burly mule that he stole from his annoying neighbor that he never liked. He rode this mule day and night, stopping only 12 hours to clip his abnormal toenails and to rest. When he slept, he held his chicken nail clipper close to his side. It was going to be his children's inheritance, and he hoped one day it would make its way into his children's hands. On the 6th day of travel, the burly mule became feral and began to attack Hawk in a fit of deranged rage. All of Hawk's gear was on the burly mule, and so all Hawk had in his hand was his nail clipper. He quickly swung out the rotating piece, and using the pointy end, designed to dig junk out from under his nails, any nail, He plunged the dagger He quickly swung out the rotating piece, and using the pointy end designed to dig junk out from under his nails, he plunged the dagger of a nail clipper directly into the eye of the raging burly mule as it charged him. Hawk now needed a new means of transport. He walked for days and days. He found nothing, and the mule had spilled most of the Kool-Aid Jammers, Sunny D, and Hi-C he had packed for his perilous trip. The teacher or whoever wrote clever next to this. He eventually found a cactus, which he cut open slowly using his nail clipper, and drank the little amount of water inside. Eventually, he came across a tiny pigeon, which he took with him, and not long after, a small abandoned tunnel with a small water supply. He came across a small abandoned tunnel with a small water supply inside. The water tasted funny, and so Hawk couldn't drink much of it at once. He began feeding the tiny pigeon, which he named Larry, the water. Both Hawk and Larry began exhibiting odd effects. Hawk's hair turned fluorescent green, and his teeth began to glow neon. His voice became raspy, and he began to say random chemistry phrases. Without his control. Larry simply grew to giant proportions and became covered in eyes. He sprouted eyes all over his pigeon body and was the size of a minivan. The size of a minivan. Hawk and Larry had been living in the cave for 6 months, and Hawk had written Avogadro's equation all over the walls. He was obsessed with science and could barely remember his former self. All he had that reminded him of who he was the chicken nail clipper. He had forgotten to clip his nails for the last 3 months, and his nails were now the length of Rainbow Road in Mario Kart. He remembered now, after looking at the nail clipper, where he had to go. At once, he mounted Larry with a saddle he forged out of cave fungus and flew off into the sunset. At high noon, miles up in the sky, Hawk exclaimed, "Avogadro!" And in a fit of chemistry-induced excitement, he dropped his nail clipper into the lake down below. There was no time for him to stop, for his task was of paramount importance, and Hawk was never seen again. Hundreds of years passed, and a small boy by the name of McChicken was swimming in a lake in search of mashed potatoes. In parentheses, I wrote, now grown underwater, obviously. When he came across the chicken nail clipper, the image faded and the metal rusted, but still intact. Upon contact with the nail clipper, the boy muttered, "Avogadro," under his breath. He put the nail clipper on his keychain and walked away into the sunset. That's it. So, actually, the part about the nail clipper and the beginning part, obviously the Guatemala, it's all made up, but the nail clipper part where he got it from Pat is real. Now, this nail clipper, again, there's no chicken on it, but that doesn't mean there wasn't ever a chicken on it. Like it said in there, it fell off. So it doesn't have the chicken on it anymore, but it's still the same nail clipper that was given to me from Pat when he traveled somewhere and brought this back to me, and it's been on my keychain for literally since I was able to drive. So that's the story of the nail clipper. Thanks for listening.